Good evening, everyone. I'm Joel Richard, welcoming you to Loveworld USA News. As we begin tonight, let's take a quick look at the top stories. Jury convicts Ryan Routh in 2024 Trump Golf Club assassination attempt. Disruption follows verdict. President Trump cancels meeting with Schumer, Jeffries as government funding deadline nears. NATO allies should shut down Russian jets that breach their airspace, says President Trump. Secret Service foils alleged Chinese-linked plot to target NYC telecom systems. Nexstar and Sinclair keep Jimmy Kimmel Live off air on their ABC stations despite Disney reinstatement. And now to the news. A federal jury has found Ryan Routh guilty on all counts stemming from the 2024 assassination attempt on then-presidential candidate Donald Trump at his West Palm Beach golf club. Moments after the verdict was read, Routh appeared to try to stab himself in the neck with a pen before U.S. Marshals subdued him. No injuries to others were reported. Routh, who is 59 years old, was convicted of attempting to assassinate a major presidential candidate, assaulting a federal officer, and multiple firearms offenses. The charges carry a potential maximum sentence of life in prison. A sentencing date has not yet been set. Now, prosecutors argued that Routh meticulously planned the attack, citing what they said were numerous reconnaissance trips to the course, surveillance footage, location and license plate data, and also forensic ties to an SKS rifle recovered near a concealed position by the sixth hole. The government presented digital records, including searches, flight tracking activity, and messages referencing President Trump's movements. Routh represented himself, called 3 witnesses, and offered no admissible evidence to rebut the core forensic and digital record. In closing arguments, prosecutors emphasized intent and preparation as the basis for the attempted assassination conviction. The courtroom briefly turned chaotic after the verdict when Routh's daughter shouted objections before marshals restored order. The jury remained present during the disturbance. Let's take a look.
On all 5 counts. Now, you might remember it's that first one that is the most significant. So they did find him guilty of attempting to kill Donald Trump when he was a presidential candidate last year.
Keep walking!
A 12-person jury found Ryan Routh guilty of trying to assassinate Donald Trump at Trump's West Palm Beach golf course last year. They also found him guilty on 4 additional related charges.
All units be advised.
During closing arguments, federal prosecutors walking the jury through the mountain of evidence in this case. 38 government witnesses, more than 100 exhibits, which they say shows Routh intended to kill Trump and took substantial steps toward committing that crime by meticulously and obsessively tracking Trump before lying in wait. A loaded rifle with a bullet in the chamber and the safety off, and a sniper hide he created 126 feet from the hole Trump was set to play next. Make no mistake, the federal prosecutor said, Ryan Routh wanted Donald Trump dead and was 1 bullet away.
More news on President Donald Trump. He has canceled a planned meeting with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, calling their proposals unserious and ridiculous, as Congress faces a September 30th deadline to avoid a partial government shutdown. The Democratic leaders had requested talks to address funding disputes, but President Trump said no progress could be made while they continued pushing partisan demands. Lawmakers remain away from Washington for the Jewish holiday, with the Senate expected back September 29th and the House not due to return until after the deadline. Democrats have accused Republicans of stonewalling and argue that the short-term extension backed by President Trump includes harmful provisions. They claim it would jeopardize Affordable Care Act subsidies and funding for hospitals, while President Trump has countered that Democrats want to repeal key elements of his legislation, including Medicaid cuts and a rural hospital fund. In a statement on his Truth Social platform, President Trump insisted Republicans are seeking only a clean extension to keep the government open, and said Democrats are trying to insert unrelated policy measures. The president added that he would be open to meeting once Democrats become realistic and agree to principles that keep federal spending under control. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has also warned that Democrats are attempting to load health care and other policy changes into a short-term funding bill, which Republicans reject. The last major standoff between President Trump and Schumer over government funding occurred in 2018, leading to a 35-day shutdown. Republicans say Democrats risk repeating that outcome by refusing to negotiate on straightforward appropriations. The White House has emphasized that if a shutdown occurs, responsibility will lie with Democrats for insisting on partisan demands instead of supporting a temporary extension to keep the government open. Watch this.
Trump and House Republicans and Senate Republicans are running scared, which is why they refuse to even sit down and have a conversation to discuss the Republican government shutdown and the healthcare crisis that is going to cause people in the United States of America to die.
In other news, President Donald Trump said today that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft that violate their airspace, a blunt directive delivered during a bilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The president, asked by a reporter whether allies ought to engage Russian jets that enter the territory, President Trump replied, "Yes, I do." The comment came the same day he criticized the United Nations for creating new problems, particularly on migration, and urged tougher border enforcement by member states. President Trump's meeting with Zelensky unfolded as airspace tensions remain high in Europe. Estonia said last week that 3 Russian MiG-31s violated its airspace before being escorted away, an incident Tallinn called unprecedentedly brazen. At the United Nations, President Trump argued that international bodies should stop funding an assault on Western countries and their borders, while touting his administration's domestic immigration crackdowns. The president also extended the hand of American leadership and friendship to member nations, even as he questioned the organization's effectiveness. Zelensky, who has pressed for sustained Western backing against Russia, appeared alongside President Trump, but did not immediately address the airspace remark. Let's take a look.
Very much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Mr. President, any update on your talks with President Putin, and do you still trust him?
I'll let you know in about a month from now, okay?
President Trump, your
President, are
message
you
to
willing
the...
to provide Ukraine with the security guarantees the same way as European allies?
Well, that's later down the road. We'll be talking about that. Hopefully, we'll be in a position to talk about that a little bit later on. It's a little bit too early to answer that question.
The Secret Service announced it has disrupted a plot that could have crippled New York City's telecommunications network during the United Nations General Assembly. Officials said agents seized hundreds of servers and more than 100,000 SIM cards capable of sending up to 30 million anonymous text messages per minute, raising concerns about the potential to overwhelm the city's phone systems and law enforcement communications. Investigators believe the operation was connected to the Chinese government, though no arrests have been made. The discovery was part of a routine Secret Service protective work for President Donald Trump and other senior officials. Officials said the equipment could have been used to disrupt communications across the region, but stopped short of confirming whether the plot was tied directly to the UN gathering. The investigation began last spring and remains ongoing, with Secret Service officials working alongside the NYPD and other federal agencies. Authorities have not disclosed how the equipment was uncovered, but confirmed it was found across multiple locations in the New York metropolitan area. They said the scale of the seizure highlights the seriousness of the potential threat. Now, while officials stressed there is no immediate danger to world leaders at the UN Assembly, they acknowledge the broader risks posed by foreign-backed operations on U.S. soil. The investigation comes as President Donald Trump prepares to address the General Assembly this week amid heightened global security concerns over international conflict and domestic political unrest. Watch this.
This morning, the U.S. Secret Service believes it disrupted a plot that could have collapsed the entire telecommunications system in New York City. And law enforcement sources tell ABC News it's believed to be connected to the Chinese government. Officials say several individuals, including at least one with direct access to the president, began receiving threats this spring. In recent weeks, investigators tracked those threats to multiple locations in and around New York, where they said they seized hundreds of servers and more than 100,000 SIM cards. Enough equipment to send 30 million anonymous text messages every minute, overwhelming communications.
The news will be back after this break.
Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project is all about making sure the voice of our man of God, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, arrives exactly when someone needs it the most. It's a global campaign to saturate the world with the gospel of our Lord Jesus like never before.
The gospel is going to go into places that it never was before, into disciplines and areas that it never was before, and establish a higher way of life.
Make a global impact today with your sponsorship of Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. For every home you sponsor, you send the gospel where it's never gone. You become the reason someone receives life, a second chance, and finds Jesus. Through the dynamic Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project, we've been able to expand our global mission, touching more souls, more regions, and producing a wave of powerful testimonies from people whose lives have been forever changed. Your financial support as a Loveworld USA partner is not just generous, it's supernatural power for global impact. Let's keep sending the gospel into every home through the Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. Sign up today and sponsor any of the following categories.
It's time for you to give the right sacrifice, the right seed, because it's time for you to get the right harvest.
You can sponsor Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project by calling or going on our website now. Sign up to be Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project partner today. God bless you.
Nexstar Media Group has announced it will continue to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live on its 32 ABC affiliates, even as Disney returns the late night show to the New York network lineup. Sinclair Broadcast Group, which operates 30 ABC affiliates, announced a similar move on Monday. Nexstar said last week's decision to pull the program after ABC called host Jimmy Kimmel's remarks ill-timed and insensitive will remain in place, pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue. The company noted viewers can still access the show on Disney-owned streaming platforms, while its stations emphasize local news and other market-specific programming. Sinclair said it will replace Kimmel with news coverage, while discussions with ABC are ongoing. ABC suspended the show after affiliates began preemptions amid controversy over Kimmel's comments about the alleged assassin of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, drawing sharp criticism from both sides of the aisle and a public warning that from FCC Chair Brendan Carr. Disney has now cleared the program to return, and Kimmel is expected to address the matter on air. Watch this.
8. Sinclair Broadcast Group has decided to keep Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air on its ABC affiliate stations, even though Disney has officially ended the show's suspension. And here's where it gets interesting. Disney says Kimmel is coming back Tuesday night, but Sinclair isn't budging. On Monday, Sinclair announced that starting Tuesday evening, it will replace Kimmel's late-night slot with news programming across its 30 ABC affiliates. The company says talks with ABC are still underway, but they're not ready to bring the show back until certain conditions are met. This isn't the first time Sinclair has taken this stance. Just last week, they joined Nexstar in pulling Kimmel's show after the host made controversial remarks about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, comments that sparked outrage and even drew attention from the FCC. Sinclair's vice chairman, Jason Smith, called Kimmel's words inappropriate and deeply insensitive during what he described as a critical moment for the country.
We've received news today that India has sent a senior delegation to Washington after President Donald Trump implemented a new $100,000 application fee for H-1B visas, a sharp increase from the previous range of $2,000 to $5,000. The change, which took effect on Sunday, directly impacts Indian nationals, who hold about 70% of the skilled worker visas. Indian officials warned that the policy could create humanitarian consequences and drive workers toward other countries. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar are leading the delegation, with meetings scheduled with U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Indian officials suggested that while nations seek stronger trade relations with New Delhi, the U.S. move reflects concern over India's large pool of skilled talent. Trade talks are continuing alongside the immigration dispute, with both sides working to address tariffs and market access issues. The Trump administration defended an increase, citing reports that U.S. tech firms had abused the program by laying off American workers while hiring H-1B visa holders at lower wages. The White House argued that such practices have suppressed pay for U.S. workers, closed domestic IT divisions, and contributed to rising unemployment in the computer science fields. Officials also said the changes were needed to restore the program's original purpose of filling genuine skill shortages. The administration further framed the issue as a national security concern, warning that abuses in the system discourage Americans from entering science and technology fields and risk undermining U.S. leadership. By dramatically raising the fee, the White House intends to deter misuse while prioritizing opportunities for American workers. Now, the outcome of this week's U.S.-India discussions may determine whether trade cooperation can continue alongside rising tensions over immigration policy. Speaking of policy, California is moving to keep oil and gas companies from departing the state, with Governor Gavin Newsom signing legislation to expedite permits for up to 2,000 new wells annually in Kern County for the next decade. The measure seeks to bolster the state's supply, temper refinery closures, and reduce price spikes at the pump. Gavin Newsom has framed the bill as a short-term stability move alongside the state's longer-term cleaner energy shift. Now, broadly, the state's refining footprint has shrunk from about 40 refineries in the early 1980s to 13 today. With anticipated shutdowns of Valero and Phillips 66, that number could drop to 11. California motorists currently pay substantially more than the national average for gasoline. Supporters of the bill argue that speeding up approvals in the state's largest oil-producing region could offset supply constraints and reduce reliance on imports. California now sources roughly 3/4 of its oil from overseas. Critics counter that fast-tracking wells risk undercutting climate and public health goals and may not meaningfully lower prices without broader permitting and refinery upgrades. The Newsom administration says the policy is intended to mitigate future gasoline spikes by stabilizing in-state petroleum and refining supply while the state scales up alternatives. Legal and regulatory challenges from environmental groups are likely, setting up another test at how California balances energy reliability with its climate commitments. Let's take a look.
In Kern County, oil isn't just an industry, it's a way of life. These rigs have shaped the local landscape and livelihoods for decades. Now, a new bill signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom last week, SB 237, gives a much-needed boost to oil and gas drilling in Kern County.
And I want to thank the governor of the state of California for making sure that we get 2,000 new well permits, new drill permits. Not side works, not reworks. We get 2,000 new drill permits every year for 10 years.
Senator Shannon Grove calls it a major win for Kern County, considering that just last year, the state had only approved 84 new rigs. Beyond the county receiving the green light for these new rigs, SB 237 is expected to create jobs, boost local tax revenue, and help stabilize California's fuel supply.
Gas is expensive in California. We have limited supply. Kern County has ample supply. We're going to add to that. This, I think, is going to be encouraging for low prices.
For years, however, the state had severely limited oil and gas drilling in favor of developing cleaner alternative energy. But faced with the prospect of gas prices reaching $8 a gallon, state leaders appear to have reversed course.
SB 237 codifies the Kern County EIR that makes all of our drilling net carbon increase, meaning every oil well we put in the ground, there is no carbon increase whatsoever.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more news after this break.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Welcome back. We've received news tonight that prosecutors at the International Criminal Court have filed crimes against humanity charges against former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, alleging his role in the killing of at least 76 people while in office as part of his brutal anti-drug campaign. The filing moves the long-running probe into a new phase. ICC judges on the pretrial chamber will now review the prosecutor's evidence and decide whether to issue arrest warrants or a summons to appear. The Philippines withdrew from the ICC in 2019, but the court maintains it has jurisdiction over alleged crimes committed while the country was still a member and, in some cases, over conduct that continued afterward if it was part of an earlier course of action. An indictment does not guarantee detention. Enforcement depends on member states' cooperation, and Philippine authorities have previously rejected ICC involvement. Duterte has long defended his drug war and denied ordering unlawful killings. The case centers on whether the campaign constituted a systematic attack on civilians, the threshold for crimes against humanity, and could set a significant precedent for accountability over anti-drug crackdowns carried out under the banner of public security. Watch this.
Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has been charged with crimes against humanity for killings during his so-called war on drugs. The International Criminal Court has accused Duterte of being an indirect co-perpetrator in dozens of killings, first as mayor of Davao and later as president. Charges link him to 78 murders carried out by police and death squads. Manila estimates more than 6,000 people were killed in Duterte's drug war, but rights groups say the toll is likely in the tens of thousands. Duterte has been held at the ICC in The Hague since March. A hearing confirming the 80-year-old's charges has been postponed due to his health.
More news on the international front. Guinea voters overwhelmingly approved a new constitution that paves the way for ruling junta members to run for president. Provisional results showed late Monday. The Directorate General of Elections reported turnout at just over 80% of polling stations was 91.4%, with 90.06% voting yes and 9.04% voting no, surpassing the 50% participation threshold required for passage. Now, the charter extends presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, renewable twice, and creates an upper house of parliament with 1/3 of senators appointed by the president. It also permits members of the military government to seek office, a shift from earlier transition pledges. Junta leader Colonel Mamadi, as he's known, Doumbouya, has not announced whether he will run, though he was the dominant face of the Yes campaign. Opposition parties boycotted the referendum, calling it a masquerade, while rights groups accused authorities of dissolving dozens of parties, curbing media, and intimidating critics ahead of the vote. Supporters cited infrastructure work and youth programs as reasons to back the changes in a country where, despite vast mineral wealth, more than half the population faces severe poverty and food insecurity. The ballot marks a pivotal step in Guinea's promised transition after the 2021 coup that ousted President Alpha Condé, and it comes amid a wave of military takeovers in West Africa closely watched by regional bloc ECOWAS. Final certification rests with the newly formed Elections Authority, whose leaders were appointed by Doumbouya, and officials say national polls are expected later this year, though no date has been set. Let's take a look.
The counted vote is validated, 91.4%. Total voters who voted, 4,825,292. The votes collected by the Yes across 19,454 polling stations, we have 4,319,476, or 90.6%. The No, 450,438, or 9.4%.
Now, just before we end the news tonight, let's have a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news, let's have a quick recap of the top headlines. Jury convicts Ryan Ruth in 2024 Trump Golf Club assassination attempt. Disruption follows verdict. And President Trump cancels meeting with Schumer, Jeffries as government funding deadline nears. NATO allies should shoot down Russian jets that breach their airspace, says President Trump. And the Secret Service foils alleged Chinese-linked plot to target NYC telecom systems. And Nexstar, Sinclair keep Jimmy Kimmel Live off air on their ABC stations despite Disney reinstatement. And that's all the news we have for you tonight. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Joel Richards, signing off. God bless you. God bless our armed forces. And God bless the United States of America.